What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Shane Vitko Podcast. Hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. So I want to jump right into a few things here. The first thing I want to address is kind of my vulgar language, the swearing. Thank you for everyone that's been supportive this far, and thank you for sticking with me, even though I have such a potty mouth. But this is what I started thinking, right? It's I want to be raw. I want to be authentic. This is me. This is how I talk, like if it's just me and some fellas. But the point is that, I'm a professional. I do things for a living, and I don't speak like that much. I still swear no matter what. But I started thinking about, like, if you have a 15-year-old son or daughter or somebody that you think this information could help, it may prevent you from sharing that with them because of me swearing so much. So with that said, I'm going to do my best to start trying to cut down on the swearing. And the real reason that I use it so much in here is it's like I swear regularly, but trying to transition from each point to each point, a lot of times saying the F word becomes my filler for or or something like that. So anyways, we're all learning together, okay? So real quick, I got a story, and I want to know if this is something that you guys can relate to. And it has to do with anger, right? So I had to go the day before Thanksgiving. I had to go to Walmart and pick up a few things for my wife and a gift for a kid. And where I live, anything in Texas is a solid, 25-minute drive at least, right? With traffic and everything. And it was nuts that day. So I drive to Walmart and, 25, 30 minutes, whatever. I get there. I get all the stuff I need and I drive all the way back home. I get home, I'm unloading all the bags and everything. And the one bag that had, I had to get a toy for a friend of ours for their kid's birthday. And it just wasn't here. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I go back out, I look in the car, it's not there. And I'm like, at Walmart, when they give you your stuff, they put it in the bag and it's like on that carousel. And it's on you to take the bag and put it in your cart. So I forgot. And when I tell you that in those kind of moments, the level of fury that just enters my body, and I'm just like, one part of me just wants to get a ladder and go on top of the roof and do a gainer off of it. And the other part of me just wants to lay on the ground and throw a temper tantrum and kick and scream and just yell a bunch of profanities. But I realized and I don't know what you call it, because it's like, there's justifiable anger, right? Where somebody cuts you off, someone says, fuck you, or whatever it is that they do, and you go like, oh man, I've been wronged. I have this right to be angry. But when it's something that I do and there's nobody that I can point the finger at, like this was 100% user error. I forgot the bag. I had nobody to blame. And in those moments, I find myself that I get even more angry because I have no one to yell at or take it out on, So it forces me to sit and it festers in me. The difference is now, once upon a time, that would fester in me, and then the next person that does something to wrong me, now you get to feel how that situation made me feel. Instead, this time, it's I go what am I going to do? If I don't go now, it ends up getting lost. I lose that money. I can't go back in a day. So I'm I have no choice. I have to pull up my big boy pants, get back in the car, and go drive back there and go get it. And I did, and it's as I drove there, again, this is the thing where it's I can drive there and be in this pissed off state. I kind of was a little bit numb at this point, where I was just where you drive and just go how did I just get from A to B without kind of realizing I stopped at stoplights and stuff like that. It was kind of that situation. I was just listening to music. I made a couple calls. And that's what helps me is it's when I got to get out of my own head is let me call somebody else to get out of my own shit and see what's going on with someone else, or if I can help somebody with what they got going on. And it makes me, not think that my problems are so bad. Anyways, I went there, I got it, came home, drove home. It was no big deal. But if you can relate to that, drop a comment, let me know. And again, and this is like a thing I have to do and say is like, please subscribe, like, comment, follow, do all the things. I appreciate it all. All right. So this is what I want to talk about today, is the moment that I knew I had to change. And you would think, well, it must have been when you got arrested, and went to prison. Nope, it wasn't. It must have been when you violated probation and went back to jail. Nope, it wasn't. It must have been the countless times that you got arrested. It must have been, it was never the obvious. It was never all these signs where you would think the normal person goes, geez, this cost me a lot. Maybe I should change. Nope. For me, it was like, so I went to California in December of 2015. And I was in treatment, and things weren't changing. Like I almost got kicked out of the places that I went to in LA early on. I mean, I was just an absolute basket case, and they were not, I don't know that they've not ever had something like that, but I was a case where it was like most people would just try to keep their distance from me. The thing that I had in my corner was, at the time, there was probably 20 of us that were from Boston, Massachusetts, the surrounding area. So there were some kids that I knew, some kids that I knew through other people, I've heard of or whatever. So for that reason, it helped me because I saw guys that I knew came from where I came from, and I saw them starting to make changes and do things differently. And really, I just got to this point, same thing, where it was just like, I'm either gonna go on the roof and do a triple Indy off the top into the cement, or I don't know, because like I don't know what else to do anymore. Like I can't do this anymore. And that was when I had, and they had come to me a few times and said, hey, do you want to do breath work? And I was like, dude, I don't know if you got the memo. I'm way too cool for that. I don't want to do yoga. I don't want to, hold my fingers like this and go sit in the woods and chant. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm way too cool. And like I said, because there was guys from where I had grown up, and, they were like, dude, I'm telling you, you should really try this. I think you dig it. I think it's something that could help you. And even then I was skeptical, and I was like, I don't know, dude. But really it's because I was afraid. I was afraid that could crack me open, and it did. And I remember, finally they came to me and said, hey, because every week it would be the same thing. Hey, do you want to do breath work? And I'd be like, nope, absolutely not. And then finally one week they came, and the girl that was doing it was like, why don't you try doing breath work with me? And for whatever reason that day, I was like, you know what? Fine, I will. Because I've had enough at this point. If you tell me to eat dog shit and it's going to help me get sober and help me, have some joy in my life, then get me a fork, So I went and did the breathwork session, and sure enough, that for me was the pivotal moment when I thought, you know what, then I might have a chance, because it broke me open, dude. I'd not ever cried like that. I've not ever felt like that. I'd not ever thought about the things that came up with my mom and all this stuff. And it was really heavy. And I was like, what just happened? What was that? I've not ever experienced that. I've been to all the talk therapy. I've done all the things, and I have never allowed another individual or any form of anything to break me open like that. I thought I was so tough, and I had such a hardened shell that it's impossible to get through. So that was the moment for me. But unfortunately, that's not the moment that I get sober and everything changes and my life is just, peachy keen and I'm off to the races. I was able to stay sober for a year. And then I went and got certified, and I loved breath work so much that I was like, this is something I want to do. I want to be able to give back and do this for other people, because it was that amazing to me. So that's what I did. I went and got certified. I became a breathwork facilitator, blah, blah, blah. And through that, the problem is that I stayed sober for a year. My first year in California, I stayed sober. I got a year, took a cake for a year, all that stuff. But what happened was I had all these people that were just like, you're such a miracle. You're this like, spiritual breathwork guy now. And I stopped allowing myself to be a human. Like, I thought what that meant was, now that I'm sober, I have to always be happy. I could always be spiritual, always have the answers for everyone. I don't make mistakes anymore. I don't get mad. I definitely don't swear anymore. And like, man, what a lot of pressure that I put on myself to not allow myself to be a human. And because of that, every time that I got angry, every time that I made a bad choice or, wasn't being this spiritual breathwork guy, I felt like I was failing. I felt like I was full of shit. And it's not that I was full of shit. It's that I was a human and I was not allowing any room for error. So, ultimately I relapsed and, I got into a bunch of motorcycle accidents and, it took me, a year of, shooting black tar heroin in California, until I finally went back to treatment, August 22nd of 2018. So what I had to face, both times in sobriety of like when I had that year and then when I came back, what I really needed to face was like, I had to remember that it was honesty over being tough. And what I mean by that is not like I'm tough and I can win fights. Tough in the way of nothing bothers me. I have no emotional connection to anything. I'm not sad. I'm not, none of that stuff that makes me weak. And I had to get honest with some stuff. And I had mentioned this before about, when I had done a fourth step and I started to look at all the things that were coming up, and fear of abandonment was a huge thing that came up for me. Because I didn't want to get hurt. Like, I don't want hurt. I don't want you to know the real me, because then you have ammo. Like, if I, for instance, even, and not just with women or anything, like a guy, if I tell a guy like, hey man, like I'm a little bit sad or I'm feeling like this, in my head, I'm thinking, well, now you can use that against me. And then we're at a party or wherever we're at and you go, hey everyone, quick news flash. Let me get a megaphone so I can let everyone here know. Shane gets afraid sometimes and cries. Just want to let you know, enjoy your time. That's what I thought would happen, So I had to get honest about some stuff, and I had to be okay with crying. That was another thing that was so foreign to me, and it made me feel so weak and like, you don't cry, men don't cry, start not just feeling feelings, but addressing them, talking about why this makes me sad or why this makes me feel the way it does, and kind of and ask for help, right? Ask other men and women. So many people along my path that were there to offer their guidance and their knowledge, right? Because I didn't have knowledge. I didn't have knowledge about shit. I had knowledge about like the street and how to like survive in the street, but I didn't have knowledge on how to change. I didn't have knowledge on why I do the things that I do, why my brain reacts the way, why I feel it's my duty to do certain things or to act a certain way. So once I started to do that, things obviously started to get better, but it wasn't this easy transition either where I was just like, oh sweet, now I feel my feelings and I talk about them all the time. It still was like this hesitant process for me because I just always reverted back to this default setting of like, I hate feeling weak. Like, why can't I be one of these guys that's been on 7 deployments, has a wife and kid, does all this stuff, isn't affected by much, does life, like comparison. I would compare to other people that I knew, other people that had been through same situations, if not worse, and they were okay, on the surface, if you will. But they weren't shooting heroin. They weren't blowing their life up. So what was different? Like, and this is where I started to feel like I'm different. I'm unique. There's something wrong with me, right? Or I'm weak. I can't be like these other guys. They're real men. They know how to handle it. They know how to take shit to the grave. They know how to rub some dirt on it and keep moving. And, I got this tape in my head that's from my dad. That's from my perception of, comparing with these other men of like, if I can't do this, then I'm weak. And then that just sends me into this place of like, why do I even try? What's the point? Why do I even try? I will never live up to these men. I'll never be as strong, as tough, as, you know, whatever it is. I just can't live up to it. So for that reason, why do I even try? I might as well just keep spiraling downwards and just say fuck it and just shoot heroin and piss my life away, because who cares? And wah, poor me, it's not fair. And then just live in victimville for the rest of my life, you know? And I was sick of that, dude. I was sick of living in victimville. I didn't want to be a fucking victim anymore. I didn't want to sit there and be like, oh, it's not fair, and because my mom died, and because my dad was mean, and, you know, it's just not fair. You know, it all comes back to that. Do you want to be right or you want to be happy? You can't be both. And I didn't want to be right anymore. I didn't want to be like, well, because I punched this kid in the face, but you don't understand. My mom died, blah, blah. And people go, well, you're right. That makes sense. I didn't want to be right. I wanted to be happy. You know, getting sober is brutal, especially kicking opiates, kicking heroin, booze. I mean, whatever it is that you maybe have struggled with or are struggling with, detox is fucking hell, no doubt. And I'm not one of those guys that's like, after a week, you know, I'm on a meeting and I'm like, yeah, I'm Shane. I get 10 days and like, this is great, man. Like, I'm just so happy. No, I was angry and I was not happy for a long time. I would threaten people in meetings still. I would go off. I would lose my temper because my body was like at war, right? I got one side of me that's like trying to be this new version of who I think I am today and take on these challenges, be willing to change, be willing to get vulnerable, not give a shit what other people think about me. And then this other side of me that was this default setting of like, you're not going to make me feel weak. You're not going to make me feel less than. I liked the anger. I liked the feeling of that chaos. That's what I was used to. So that doesn't just go away. It takes time to start choosing one over the other. And through the years, the more that I chose the other one, the better of the two. The chaos and anger in one starts to settle down a little bit. But removing the booze and drugs, that's not where it ends, right? Just because, and that's I kind of think I thought that, and I think a lot of people think that too, is once I get sober, everything will be cool and then I'll be all right. I don't know. So in the program, we have steps and we also have principles. And someone told me once upon a time, do the steps will get you sober, do the principles is how you'll experience joy. But for me, it was like, it's not only adapting the things that I learned about sobriety and about principles to just my substance abuse. It's practicing, again, this is another saying, is practicing this in all of our affairs. So once I realized, okay, I have to now start adapting this same mindset to everything that I do in life, because I could be the best and I was awesome in programs. I could do all the stuff in meetings. I could do all the stuff. But was I a good friend? Was I a good partner in a relationship? Was I a reliable employee? And a lot of the times, no was the answer to that. You know, sure, I removed the drugs, I removed the booze, all that stuff, and that's great. That's a huge starting point, but it's more than that. And I feel like a lot of people get tripped up because they're going, I don't understand. I changed, I stopped using drugs, blah, 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 but my life is still the same. And that takes work. You know, you have to think to yourself when you're in these situations of, who do I want to be in this situation? Sure, I've removed the drink and the drug, but I'm still womanizing. I'm still scheming, or I'm still thinking about how I could steal something or get away with something, because it's not that big a deal. It's not as bad as, you know, and again, using comparison of like, well, it's not like I'm out robbing and stealing and tying people up. I'm only stealing a Red Bull from the grocery store or something, you know? And it's like, that still counts, you know? So for me, it got to this point of like, by the end of the day, when I lay my head on my pillow, have I wronged anyone? Did I give everyone the best version of me? Was I being a fucking weasel throughout the day? And if the answer is yes, then then for me, I have to do something about that. Because if I don't, I'm going to be a little bit of a weasel the next day, and then a little bit of a weasel the next day. And then eventually all those are going to end up piling up like a pressure cooker, and I'm going to explode. Or I'm going to take that weasel behavior and I'm going to amplify it times 10 as the days, months, weeks start to go on. And before you know it, I'm shooting heroin going, I don't understand how I got here. I thought I was sober. I thought I had all the answers. I thought I was doing all the things. I was meeting makers make it. I was going to meetings. I was doing the things. But I wasn't practicing these principles in all my affairs, you know. I think a big thing for me too was becoming a better listener. I never listened before, right? To me, it was like when someone was talking, all I was thinking was a couple things. How am I going to make fun of you? How am I going to make you laugh? Or how can I tell a story that's, I don't know if it's one-upping, I guess it is, but like, how can I tell a story that's even cooler? Or the way you tell stories sucks, and I'm a way better storyteller, and I know that. So when's it my turn, you know? And I wasn't listening. So to practice that was really tough too, because now it's like when people talk, I have to actually sit there and like listen, and interested or not. And then instead of making it about me or taking it being like, oh, wow, that's really cool. So did I tell you about me and what happened? Is like, say, wow, that's, you know, and give them feedback on whatever they just told me. And then if there's time, maybe I could tell my story, or maybe I could tell what's going on with me. But I was such a shitty listener because I didn't care. I was self-centered. I was selfish. Whatever you had to say didn't matter. What was important was when I get to talk, because now everybody's going to laugh. And then that feeds this void that I have. Because now, great, I'm funny. Everyone like, great. Woo. I get to tell something that's nuts. So people go, dude, that's crazy. What a crazy story. And you're like, yeah, sorry. I don't want to brag. I was in the mafia. Right. And like always that was the case. And that was a thing that I had to really stop and think about and be like, I have to really slow my brain down a little bit. I got to slow myself down and have a good rebuttal back to people to engage in conversation, right? Because that was foreign to me too. It was like, if we have a conversation and you say something I don't like, I will respond by bringing my volume up, talking louder, swearing, being aggressive, my body language, all this stuff, so that whether you're right or wrong, you felt enough fear to go, shit, you know what, you're right. And it's like, and then that gives me the power. And I go, yes, I knew it. I'm glad you knew you were wrong. Now hear what I have to say, because that's what's important. And then, you know, through having conversations like that and not responding the way that I want to, pausing before I react, not just lashing out or walking away, you know, like if somebody said something I don't like, or, you know, I felt threatened, to just go, cool, man, and walk away. That was not an easy thing for me too, because internally I have, you know, kids, men, whatever, lined up on both sides of me, all going, dude, you're the biggest pussy alive. How are you going to walk away? How are you going to let this kid talk to you like that? You know? And it's me walking away in these moments thinking, you know, first of all, shut up to all these voices. I got to get my blinders on because it's about me. And just walking, and like a few times that happened, and like, it was tough. That was a tough one for me to take. And then not all the time. Sometimes I would feed. Like I said last time with pride and ego. Sometimes I would go, cool, I'm down. You want to talk to me like that? Here's what I have to say, you know? But the difference is now that if that happens or when that happens, I'm able to go, man, that was not it, you know? And then I'm allowed the opportunity to go back to these people and go, hey, the way that I handled that was completely out of line, you know? And I would say 9 times out of 10, what that leads to is that person saying, you know, I'm sorry that for what I said, I didn't mean to kind of escalated to that point. And it tends to work itself out when there's communication between two adults that are not choosing to scream at each other and listen. I think also too that in the beginning, when I was, I mean, even still now, but you know, it's not that, you know, I started to change because life gets easier. It's like I had to change because it gets too heavy to live the way that I was living. And, you know, when I was early on, someone had said to me, like, you know, if you were the manager of your own life, would you hire you or fire you? And 1,000% I would fire me, you know? And that was the thing. It's like, and anybody can do this. Step one is admitting you were powerless over alcohol, drugs, and that your life was unmanageable. You can replace that with anything. That you are powerless over your kids, that you are powerless over depression, that you are powerless over traffic. It doesn't matter. You can make that anything. And if you can admit that you're powerless over some things, which for me was a tough thing, you know, and that your life was unmanageable, that part was not hard for me to admit. My life was 100% unmanageable. And I think when you can start to admit some things along those lines of, you know, it helps me, especially like I was a huge control freak, you know, I had to have control of the situation. If everyone would just do what I want, if you would just stand right here, you stand right there, the sun comes out at this point, this car parks right there. If everything could just be, you know, perfect for me, then there'll be no issues. You know, and it's like when I take that away and all of a sudden you're allowed to move that car, you're allowed to move that thing. I had to force myself through these situations to be like, well, it's out of that is not something that I control. It's out of my power. All I can control is my reaction to that. It's like I've said before, I can't control the thoughts that come into my head when somebody cuts me off in traffic, but I can control my actions, right? Like my choice that I make because of these thoughts. So, you know, I think the more that's another one of those things where I started to tie in this, you know, admitting I was powerless over a lot, not just drugs and alcohol. And that really helped me start to change. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for all the support. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, do a backflip, forward flip, handstand, all the shit. And I'll catch you guys next episode.